for foreign nationals who've been displaced by the attacks on foreign nationals. And please bear in mind that we do have a few seconds delay between Dasen and myself. Dasen, just give us an idea of what a day in the life of one of these people who are being housed at these camps is like.
Morning, Mabale. You know, in fact, let me start by telling you that there's a very somber mood here today. In fact, we've been speaking to some of the displaced foreigners at the moment, and they have a lot of mixed feelings. So apart from everything else that's been going on around the city over the past weeks, they were also faced with a very difficult situation. You'll notice that there's a handful of buses behind me, and that's just below where the temporary shelter has been set up. And at the moment, they are preparing to get on their way and leave. And although the past few weeks haven't been easy for them here, with them being removed from their homes and having to close up businesses and lose their jobs in many cases, with a lot of uncertainty on a day-to-day basis, you found that many of them left with just the clothes on their backs in many instances, packed up their families, brought their kids along, and a lot of them have been passing their time here, not being able to work, not being able to leave the safety of this camp. And after all of that, they were now faced with the decision of whether they want to stay on in South Africa, where they came to for better circumstances than they were experiencing in their own countries, or to leave. And from the few that we've spoken to today, they're saying to us that it wasn't an easy choice, because if they stay, they risk being killed. But if they go back, they're battling the socio-economic conditions of their country and particularly poverty.
Dasen, we've heard from a number of governments such as Somalia and Malawi speaking earlier this week about how they want to get their people out of South Africa for their safety. And now you mentioned these buses and people leaving. Would you say then that there's a large number of these people who've decided that they no longer feel safe in South Africa, and in fact most of them are leaving?
That's correct. In fact, this started and the option came about 2 weeks ago when Minister Kigaba, the Home Affairs Minister, visited this particular camp as well as the eSipingo camp as well. And he offered for displaced foreigners the option of going back home. And obviously this was done on a voluntary basis. And at the time, a lot of people that were at the camp were very uncertain about what they wanted to do. But just gauging by the number of buses here, because this is also part of that process of our government working closely with embassies of the other countries. But just gauging by the number of buses here, and also just from the people that we've spoken to who say that a large number of people are packing up and ready to go home, it seems that yes, indeed, of the 1,000 or so, or possibly more people that were at this camp, I would say that the majority of them now want to go home. We've also found a similar situation at the eSipingo camp, and our team was out there yesterday, and people were already boarding buses to head back to Zimbabwe and Malawi and other African countries as well.
Dasen, does this mean that the South Africans who forced these people out of the different communities, will they see this as a victory on their part?
Sadly, it does seem that way, but like I mentioned earlier, this is a really, really tough decision for a lot of these people to make, especially because when they leave, they're thinking purely of safety right now. But what happens thereafter, when they go back home, only time will tell. So they're really stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it's unfortunate that after this wave of xenophobic attacks and the looting and so on that we've seen in Durban, that it had to really end this way. And like you said, it almost looks as though it's been a victory for those that are perpetrating these attacks.
And finally, Dasen, for those foreign nationals who've opted to stay, what's going to happen to them? Where will they go? Will they try and go back into their communities?
Government has been quite vocal about their plans for the foreign nationals that stay here. And like I mentioned, the process of going back home has been and has always been a voluntary option. But from what we've heard from government thus far is that reintegration has been the #1 priority, and that's the reintegration of the displaced foreigners back into the communities that they came from, where they were living side by side with locals for very many years. And that will be the ultimate plan for those that remain. As to when that process will happen and how long it will take and how easy it will be, we'll really have to play that by ear and judge. We do know that government officials have been speaking to local leaders in the various communities around Durban, trying to get that process on the road. But that's definitely not an easy process to complete, and surely it's a sensitive one.
All right, well, that's where we'll leave it for now. Thank you very much.